Okay, so beginning our lesson, we're going to be discussing first where to throw fireballs. So if you're in an offensive mindset, you're going to be wanting to throw fireballs in this range right here, where it is your opponent's furthest button range is where you want to throw fireballs. So let's show this. So that's Ibuki's furthest button range right there. That forward roundhouse takes that little hop. See, you want to space it right there, where it's just right outside of that button. Now, here's also the thing, is that if you place it right outside of that button, you can get crush countered, actually. See, like if it whiffs right here, but I throw the fireball, I might get crush countered, you know? Actually, no, you won't get crush countered. I would say like maybe like a tiny step back from their furthest button. That's where you would want to do it, like a tiny step back from their furthest button. This will allow you to throw fireballs without getting crush countered. So, but you see what happens? This is a special case because this is Ibuki. This is a special case just because this is Ibuki, where she hops over your fireball. Other characters don't have that hop. But look what happens if you don't fireball. And she just whiffs it in front of your face. See what I'm saying? So that little range right there, you're gonna get hit out of it, right? But depending on when you throw the fireball, if she's even hitting you out of the fireball like that, where she doesn't get hit by the fireball, it's because this is a special case and it's Ibuki. But I just want to show that for her to hit your fireball like that, for her to hit you like that and whiff on the fireball, she has to whiff her forward roundhouse. So it's not like it's always just going to connect. She has to literally preemptively do it and whiff it and hope that you did a fireball. You know, just like that. But if you don't do anything, then it's going to whiff and you can whiff punish. So there's a mind game within that. But let's say if she, so the whole purpose of being right outside of their range when it comes to that fireball game is because if you are right outside of their forward, their longest poke, this is the button that they're most likely going to press most of the time. It's their longest poke. It's their longest button that they're going to try to check you with. But if you stay right outside of that range, which is usually somewhere around here, for most characters it's going to be somewhere around here, unless you're going up against like a birdie or some, like, even with Karen it's going to be like right here. Cammy, it's going to be like right here. You know, maybe a little further than that. But you want to naturally just stay within this range, even when you're on offensive mindset. So, throwing fireballs in this range, it catches them pressing buttons, so not only their furthest normal, right? If your opponent is just pressing any button, it's going to catch them, all right? It's just going to catch them. Another button will be something like that, right? So let's just throw out these normals. And this is just a good space that you're going to catch somebody pressing buttons. Sorry. See, something like that. And with Akuma, it's broken because it knocks down. His fireball knocks down just like that. Just like that. But notice that the range that I'm standing in. Notice that the range is a little further than the button that I'm punishing with the fireball. Just a little further to get that knockdown with Akuma. With other characters, you won't get the knockdown, but it's still a very powerful tactic because this is going to piss off your opponent. Now, notice that if I'm too close, yes, my fireball is going to get counter hit like that. If I'm too close, it's going to get counter hit like that. But you want to stay a little further than the button of choice, right? But at this point, you're in the range of their furthest button. At this point, you're in range of Ibuki's forward roundhouse. So the reason why you stay in this range is because you want to dance in this range. You're dancing in this range. You're dancing in and out of their furthest button normal. Because if they happen to throw out another normal, then they happen to throw out another normal. But if they throw out their furthest button, such as Ibuki's forward roundhouse, you could still fireball and but you could potentially get crush countered. That's true, but fireballs are kind of weak in this game in that sense. But you're staying outside of this range to make the Ibuki think twice about pressing that forward roundhouse, because yes, she might be able to crush counter you for throwing the fireball, but if she whiffs it, you get a whiff punish. So let's show that. Let's show that happen in real time. Okay. So she got that move right there. Right? You gotta dance outside of that range. You gotta... Why does it do that? You gotta dance outside of that range. Because if you throw the fireball, you might get crush countered from right here, right? Bam. But if you don't throw the fireball, bam. And for her to crush counter you, she has to preemptively do it. For her to even hit your fireball, she has to preemptively throw the fireball. She has to preemptively throw the forward roundhouse, just like that. But if you throw your fireball, sometimes there's also that moment where she can hop over it. But this is, again, a special case for Ibuki. But like we mentioned before, if she does crush counter you, or if she does hop over your fireball like that, she's whiffing your button. She's whiffing her button if you don't throw the fireball. So that only works. She only hops over it or crush counters you if you throw the fireball. But if you don't, it whiffs, and then you can whiff punish her. So it is a risk. Fireballs are risky. Even on offense and defense, fireballs are just very, very risky. And you don't want to get caught up in what can you do sometimes? But you have to throw fireballs. You establish some sort of mind game. If you don't throw fireballs, you're not going to establish any sort of mind game. So you dancing outside of this range, the Ibuki player is going to be thinking about, oh man, if I do forward roundhouse and it whiffs, then he gets a whiff punish, stand medium kick into light tatsu, into heavy tatsu, or whatever it is that your character's whiff punish is in this situation. But if I do guess correctly, I get a crush counter. So then it becomes a little bit of mind game. Well, a fireball, I think, is a better poke in this range than her forward roundhouse, because it's going to take chip damage, and it also, for Akuma, explodes. And technically, it's riskier for the Ibuki player to just randomly throw out a forward roundhouse. Whereas for me to throw out a fireball in this range, she can't really do much about it, the opponent has to hold it. The only thing that the opponent can do is press that furthest button, walk up and press that furthest button. But they're also risking of getting whiff punished. So you have to establish that type of mind game. Am I gonna throw the fireball offensively? Or how long until you press your furthest button? How long until you whiff that button trying to catch my fireball? Because you have to press it preemptively. So there's that. It catches people pressing buttons, and it makes them it makes them start thinking about, oh man, well, the only option that I have right now is either to jump or to press that furthest button, but if I whiff it, I might get crush countered, but fuck it, I still gotta do it because he's raining these fireballs down. Now, that goes into another layer as well, as if natural human reaction, if you're throwing a fireball from right here, and your opponent is blocking it, it's doing chip damage. Now, we can't really see the chip damage because my camera's blocking it, but Akuma has pretty good chip damage on his fireball. And fireballs in general, you're throwing them because of that chip damage as well. So you're gaining a life lead from it. Okay, so natural human reaction. If you're throwing fireballs from right here, your opponent's not going to want to just continue walking at you. After getting hit by one fireball or maybe two fireballs or just blocking two fireballs, your opponent's natural human reaction is going to be to do this. Just like that, where they're gonna be most likely walking back a little bit because they don't want to get rained on. They don't want to get rained on from right here, and you're chucking these fireballs. They're like, man, I can't even think right now about what I need to do, so I need to take a step back to reestablish some sort of neutral. So take that step back, you have ground advantage. When they start walking back, you start walking forward. So let's say the start of the round is right here. You threw a couple of fireballs. They're already getting pushed back from the fireball, hit or block. And that allows you to walk up a little forward and then continue throwing fireballs, or don't. You know, but that gives you the ground advantage. Now, throwing fireballs in this range, right? It's going to make them want to back up naturally to rethink their strategy. Like I just mentioned right now, they're thinking, I'm getting hit. I need to understand why I'm getting hit. Why is it that I'm like getting hit from right here? Well, it's because of fireball. Well, how am I going to beat the fireball? I have to jump the fireball. I have to block the fireball. I have to preemptively do something that beats the fireball. Or I have to do a V skill. Now, most V skills in this game are beating fireballs, which is why fireballs are still not that strong in Street Fighter V. However, you can still use them. You want your opponent to think about these layers rather than not think about them. Even if fireballs are weak, you want to give them 2 more layers to think about on the ground rather than, well, my opponent's not throwing any fireballs, so that allows me to just kind of walk up at him and do some pressure. You know, his offense isn't really layered. It's just there's no fireballs. He's just pressing buttons. So, okay, all right. But if you create the fireball game, especially in this range, this is the best range to throw the fireball right here. Right there, then you're giving them extra layers to think about. Extra layers on how do I get past this fireball. Also, fireballs in this range are very hard to jump. You have to, again, preemptively jump. You're not going to be able to react to the fireball in this range and jump. It's just impossible. You're like, unless you are 1,000,000,000% focused on it, it's just damn near impossible, especially in a game with input lag as well, with this much input lag. So, throwing fireballs in this range is also strong because they cannot jump it. They have to preemptively jump. Whereas throwing the fireball from right here is much more easier for you to react to. Throwing a fireball from here is just, it's a bad thing to do, but sometimes you have to do it. But it's a bad thing to do because they can jump those fireballs and hit you beefy. But if you're throwing a fireball from right here, it even creates like a weird jump arc for the fireball. I mean, for their jump. And also, let's say they do get a right jump. They will most likely be able to just get a medium kick, a jump medium kick into combo, rather than a jump roundhouse or a jump fierce if you're throwing a fireball from here. If you're throwing a fireball from here, they're going to have a less powerful jump in attack. Just because the space is very close. So this is the range, you know, with most characters, this is going to be the range where your fireballs are going to be very powerful. Yeah. So when you give them the layer, right? When you give them the thought of, man, well, I need to preemptively jump because my opponent is throwing fireballs right here, right? He's throwing fireballs right here. What am I going to do? Well, I have to preemptively jump. Well, if you give them that thought of, well, I have to preemptively jump, well, this happens. Throwing fireballs in that range is also strong because of this. Right? Okay, so we got that. This is the range that she's gonna... You see how I did the jump medium kick? Just because if I'm throwing fireballs from right here, she's gonna get a jump medium kick in this range. You know? So let's say I throw the fireball, bam, she got a jump medium kick. Okay, I threw the fireball, the preemptive jump medium kick, okay. You know? So, you throw fireballs in this range offensively as well because of this. So you're throwing fireballs offensively, you're in this range, you're throwing fireballs, and then bam, your opponent wants to jump, right? Your opponent is gonna want to jump in this situation. Well, that's what happens. If you're throwing fireballs in that range, you get that crosscut DP. You know? You fake the fireball, and bam, you get that crosscut DP. Because they have to preemptively jump that. And if you know that they're getting antsy dealing with the fireballs, you crosscut DP. You get in that range and you crosscut DP. This is not going to stay on the same side. This is going to for sure cross up when you're throwing those fireballs up close. Even offensively, you have a defensive type of approach as well when you're throwing fireballs. And tomorrow's lesson will be defensive fireballs, but it's kind of weird. You can use your offensive fireballs for a defensive attack as well, such as this, where you fake the fireball, or you don't throw the fireball, your opponent has to jump because he's just cracking, and then you get the crosscut DP. But notice if I'm further away and I'm throwing fireballs, I have to do the regular DP. If I'm further away, I'm doing regular DP. Further away from the range that I told you to be at, regular DP. But if I'm in that range, that furthest button of my opponent, I'm going to be crosscut DPing. Especially if I'm walking up, especially if I'm doing these right here. You got to, because that's their only option. So you're in this range, you're throwing the fireball, you know, they're gonna have to jump it like that. Okay, those are the like 5 sub-points under where to throw fireballs. Let's talk about that one more time. Let's just go over it very quickly on where to throw fireballs. You want to throw fireballs around this range, around their furthest button range. With Ibuki, it's going to be in this range, but Ibuki is... Ibuki's forward roundhouse is very strong, right? Because it can hop over your fireball. But you could use that to your advantage. You could use that to your advantage, because if you are getting hit from that hop, let's say right here, if you are getting hit by the hop just like that, then you just have to not throw the fireball and the hop will miss. It's only because you're throwing the fireball that the hop kick is hitting you. It's only because of the fireball that the hop kick is hitting you and jumping over the fireball. And it's so weird, her hop kick. Like, there you go, that's how you do it. But notice that if I don't throw it, it just whips. Bam, just like that. So you create the mind game. You want to create the mind game of, do I throw the forward roundhouse or do I not? Because if I throw the forward roundhouse, I might get a crush counter, but he also might whiff punish me. So you want your opponent to think about pressing their furthest button range, whereas if you're not throwing any fireballs, they're not going to really be fearing that whiff punish because of the sheer fact that you're not making him think about the fireballs. So think about it. If you don't throw the fireballs, he's not really going to be concentrating on, well, for me to beat the fireball, I have to do the forward roundhouse. If you don't throw the fireball, he doesn't really have to press that button as much, but you give him the incentive of pressing the forward roundhouse because you're throwing the fireball, and his forward roundhouse does good against the fireball. And Ibuki is just one example that it does good against a fireball. Most characters, their furthest button is actually going to get hit, and they're not going to hit you out of it unless they preemptively do it and it's like a very far range, like Birdie's Fierce or something like that. But again, so you want your opponent to think about the layer of, well, I got to do the forward roundhouse because I'm eating chip damage here or I'm getting hit. But if I do the forward roundhouse, I might get whiff punished. What if he doesn't throw the fireball? What if he fakes it? What if he doesn't throw the fireball? So you want the layer to be in his head. Once that layer is in his head, you give your opponent more to think about, more pressure. You're pressuring him with offensive fireballs. Now, that and like I said, so once you give him that thought, it creates that layer. But it also creates the layer of, okay, so I'm throwing fireballs at this range. Right, I'm throwing fireballs at this range. You're naturally going to be walking up, because if I'm just walking at you and throwing these, you're naturally going to be walking back. My apologies. If I'm walking at you and throwing these fireballs from these max distances, you don't know what to do in this situation. You got to either block it, get hit by it, preemptive jump, or press that forward roundhouse if you're Ibuki. Well, we already established what would happen if you whiff that forward roundhouse. I get to whiff punish you. So you have to be smart with your fireballs. You have to know exactly what is my opponent thinking as soon as he blocks this fireball. And you can understand, listen, you can understand what your opponent is thinking right after they block the fireball because of what they do right after they block the fireball. What they do right after they get hit by the fireball. Both those things, after they block it and they get hit. What is my opponent's the very first movement that they do right after they get hit or right after they block the fireball? That's how you get an understanding of what to do next about my fireball. How many more fireballs should I throw in this range? Or like, should I wait for him to do the forward roundhouse? Is he establishing that he even knows how to deal with it? Okay. And so yeah, that makes them naturally want to walk back Because if you're getting hit, your human instinct is to, okay, well, I need to get away. I need to block. Like, I need to rethink what's going on. Well, my options are this. My options are that. You see, when he's walking away, he's thinking about, oh man, well, my option is forward roundhouse. My option is to jump. Those thoughts have to go through his head. And while those thoughts are going through his head, he's displaying movement that is a download for you, you know? So while he's thinking about what exactly do I need to do to get past these fireballs in this range, you're seeing what he's doing as he's thinking about it. So that gives you the quick download on, yo, this is what exactly he's doing right now. And so then you get to see his actions again. So yeah, that gives you the ground. That allows you to walk up a little bit more. It gives you that confidence that, okay, my opponent is a little nervous. Now, your opponent could be a very strong player and fireballs don't phase him. So he can most likely, if he blocks a couple, he's just going to keep continuing to walk up at you and block, walk up at you and block, walk up at you and block. You know? And that will be discussed tomorrow on the defensive fireballs, how you could throw fireballs defensively. But just, I'm talking about offense right now, when you're approaching your opponent. And he seems to be displaying very weak defensive habits. And also, like I mentioned, these fireballs right here are very fast. They're very fast in the game. Very, very fast. So you're not going to be reacting to these as fast as you would react to these right here. You could react to this fireball a lot better than you could react to this right here, right in front of your face, right in front of the button that you want to press. If you just press a button, you're getting clipped. So what are you going to do? You know, what are you going to do? And like I said, throwing fireballs at that range is going to make them more likely want to preemptively jump. They're going to have to preemptively jump in this range in order to hit you into combo. And when that's done, when you realize that they're wanting to jump, bam, you get the crosscut. You have to crosscut in these situations. You're throwing those fireballs, throw the fireball, and then, oh, all right. You threw the fireball, and then, oh, okay. You didn't throw the fireball, bam. You threw fireball, and then he jumped and he hit you. Like that, bam. You threw the fireball, he jumped and he hit you. But you didn't throw the fireball, and you crosscut him. See, you have to choose which one you want to do. You have to choose which one you want to do and stick to it. If he jumps at you and you threw the fireball, that's your mistake. And that's a good jump on his end. But he had to jump, see? That's your problem because you took the unnecessary risk in that situation. So it all becomes a mind game. But the mind game is much more understandable once you get a download on your opponent's habits. So it all comes down to the habits. It all comes down to the download of how you feel your opponent is getting triggered or not. Is he wanting to jump? Is he showing any signs that he knows exactly what to do? But this is one of his only options, is to jump over it. I mean, he could for sure also V-skill, but let's look at what happens if he V-skills to try to get around it. Oops. Like that, right? Okay. He gets hit. He gets hit. He gets hit. He gets hit. So, you have to dance around that range. This is the range that you want to dance around in when it comes to throwing fireballs against most characters. It's going to be right here. They're not going to really have an option. Now, Ibuki can do the EX command grab, but they're using a bar. Fuck it. You at least have some sort of advantage right here. You have the advantage of you have a strong fireball. And this works for Akuma, Ryu, Ken, even Sagat is very strong in this fireball range. Guile obviously broken, so yeah, that's where you want to stand if you're throwing those offensive fireballs, just in that range right there. Do you guys understand that? You guys understand that? Because next we're gonna go into the why throw fireballs. can sum it up real quick because I missed the beginning. Well, it's going to be on YouTube, man, but we already summed it up twice. Yes, Yib 86. This is lesson 1. Yes.